Joyce Meyer is an American Christian author, speaker, and president of Joyce Meyer Ministries, a global ministry that shares her teachings on TV, radio, and the internet. She was born Pauline Joyce Hutcherson on June 4, 1943, in St. Louis, Missouri. Meyer had a hard childhood that shaped her future ministry. Joyce Meyer is a famous Christian author and speaker who has inspired millions with her writing. Behind her success is a painful and tragic story of abuse and neglect that shaped much of her early life. Meer grew up in a dysfunctional family where her father, a World War II veteran, sexually abused her for many years. This harrowing experience, made worse by her mother's emotional neglect, had a huge effect on her self-worth and spiritual journey. Meyer has shared her story openly to help others understand the long-term effects of trauma. Meyer's childhood was full of extreme dysfunction. Her father, who came back from World War I with scars from the war, became a source of immense suffering for his daughter. For many years, he sexually abused Meyer, robbing her of her childhood and leaving her in a state of confusion and fear. In her public speeches and books, Meyer has been honest about the details of this abuse, saying how it left her emotionally broken and unable to heal. She feels safe in her own home. Child sexual abuse is one of the worst things that can happen to a person. The person who is supposed to protect and guide them becomes a source of terror. Meyer's father's actions deprived her of the safety and innocence that should characterize a child's early years. Meyer has talked about how this ongoing abuse left her. Meyer was sexually abused as a child and felt helpless, ashamed, and deeply scarred. The fear and confusion she experienced gave her a deep sense of worthlessness that stayed with her into adulthood. On top of the pain of the abuse, Meyer's mother severely neglected her emotionally, even though she knew about it and failed to stop it or offer support and protection. Meyer so badly needed this neglect, which made her feel abandoned and even more alone. Emotional neglect from a parent can be just as harmful as physical abuse, and Meyer has often talked about how her mother's inaction made the emotional damage her father caused even worse. As a child, Meyer had no one to turn to for comfort or validation as she dealt with the trauma she was going through, and her mother's silence felt like a betrayal. Meyer's mother neglected her and abused her, sending the message that she wasn't worthy of love or protection. This left her with deep emotional scars that would take years to heal. The trauma Meyer experienced as a child had a huge effect on her sense of self-worth and identity. For many years, she struggled with shame, guilt, and self-loathing. Sexual abuse, especially by a parent, often leads to feelings of inferiority and unworthiness. Meyer came to believe that she was broken and that no one could ever love or accept her because of the abuse. Meyer talked about how the abuse she had been through made her feel broken and unworthy, and these feelings followed her into adulthood. She had problems with anger, mistrust, and self-esteem that affected her relationships and personal choices for a long time. She was stuck in a cycle of shame and bitterness, unable to get past the trauma of her childhood, and her mother's emotional neglect made these problems worse. Meyer did not have the emotional support that would have helped her heal and develop a healthier sense of self. When she was only 18, Joyce Meyer married David, a part-time car salesman, hoping to find stability and security in her life. However, the unresolved trauma from her childhood badly affected her marriage. Joyce grew up in a dysfunctional home where her father sexually abused her and her mother ignored her feelings. Joyce's emotional wounds from being abused led to destructive behaviors and attitudes that shook the foundation of their marriage. Joyce has been open about how these feelings, which she had pushed down for years, came out in her relationship with her husband. She had problems with trust, self-worth, and control, and she often acted out in anger or shut down emotionally. Because she couldn't trust others or herself, There was constant conflict in her marriage. The term turning point in Joyce Meyer's life came when she started to deepen her relationship with David. Even though she grew up in a religious family and knew some about Christianity, it wasn't until she was married and older that she truly committed herself to following God's teachings and letting His presence guide her life. This spiritual awakening was the start of her healing journey. Joyce has often talked about how her faith in Christ helped her face the emotional pain and trauma of her past and see that her destructive behaviors were caused by it. She realized that her unhealthy behavior and thoughts were caused by unresolved wounds, and that only God could help her find true healing through prayer, studying the Bible, and getting advice from Christian mentors. As Joyce Meyer's relationship with God grew, so did her marriage to David. The healing process took time, but with each step she took toward spiritual and emotional wholeness, her relationship with David got stronger. The unhealthy patterns of the past started to fall away, and in their place came healthier communication and emotional connection. Joyce credits her faith for helping her develop healthier ways to deal with life and a more positive outlook on life. She learned to let go of control in her marriage and trust God, which freed her from the anxiety and need to control that had been affecting her interactions with David. This change in perspective not only made their relationship better, but it also made her relationship with David stronger with him. But it also changed her sense of self-worth. She stopped seeing herself as a victim of her past and started seeing herself as someone loved and redeemed by God. The changes Joyce Meyer saw in her own life and marriage inspired her to start her ministry. After seeing the power of God's healing in her own life, she felt called to share her story with others who were going through similar problems. Today, Joyce Meyer Ministries reaches out to millions of people. Meyer's ministry has reached millions of people around the world with messages of hope, healing, and the transformative power of faith. Meyer has shared her story of how God turned her life around, healing her from the trauma of her past and restoring her marriage. Her story speaks to many people who have experienced emotional pain, trauma, and marital problems, giving them hope that healing is possible through faith. In 1976, Joyce Meyer was a normal wife and mother, but she had dramatically changed after years of struggling with emotional pain from her traumatic childhood. Meyer's faith in Christ helped her get better, and her growing relationship with God gave her a sense of purpose and peace she had never felt before. It was during this time that Meer felt a clear calling from God to serve Him in a bigger way. She thought God wanted her to share her story and help other people. Meyer's decision to become a minister wasn't easy. At the time, she didn't have any formal theological training and few resources. But her desire to share the message of God's love and healing was so strong that she started teaching Bible classes in places that weren't typical. She would get small groups of people together in coffee shops and churches and offer classes. Meyer's no-nonsense approach to teaching quickly set her apart from other religious leaders of the time. One of the main reasons for her early success as a Bible teacher was her unique approach to Christian living. Instead of focusing only on theological doctrine or abstract religious concepts, Meer stressed the practical application of biblical principles to everyday life. She taught people how to use their faith to deal with real-life problems like emotional. Meyer's teaching style was conversational and straightforward, which made her messages easy for a wide audience to understand. She didn't shy away from talking about tough topics like trauma, forgiveness, and personal responsibility. Her bold, direct style struck a chord with people who were looking for real-world solutions to their problems, and she became known for giving biblically based advice. In addition to her practical teachings, Meer also focused on emotional and spiritual healing. She thought that many people were stuck in their past traumas and negative thought patterns, and she used her platform to encourage them to find freedom through Christ. Her personal story of overcoming childhood abuse and emotional scars gave her teachings a strong sense of authenticity. People could see that she had been through hard times and come out on the other side with a strong faith and a sense of purpose. In 1985, Meyer took a big step in her ministry career by starting her own organization, which is now called Joyce Meyer Ministries. She did this because she wanted to reach more people. The message of hope, healing, and faith that Meyer had changed her own life. She saw that many others were going through similar things and wanted to give them the tools to get through them through faith. The early years of Joyce Meyer Ministries were marked by determination and hard work. With the help of her husband Dave, Meyer began to expand her outreach by hosting conferences, giving talks, and publishing Christian materials. Her bold and honest approach to ministry continued to resonate with people, and her following grew steadily. Joyce Meyer Ministries quickly gained Christians Living Ministries teachings on topics like getting over fear, healing emotions, and finding peace in everyday life really struck a chord with people who wanted to make a difference in their lives. The ministry's goal was to help people apply biblical principles in a way that could make a real difference. An important turning point in Joyce Meyer's ministry was the start of her TV show, Enjoying Everyday Life, in 1993. The show was an extension of Meyer's mission to teach practical Christian lessons to a wider audience, and it quickly became one of the most popular Christian TV shows in the world. On Enjoying Everyday Life, Meyer shares biblical teachings, personal stories, and useful advice on how to live out one's faith in real life. Meyer's teaching style is based on real-life issues like getting over insecurities and finding meaning in tough situations. The title of her show, Daily Life, comes from her belief that faith should not only be a part of one's life, but should also make everyday experiences more enjoyable. Meyer stresses that people can find joy, peace, and fulfillment through a relationship with God, even in the midst of life's challenges. Meyer's TV show became a worldwide hit, and it is now shown in over. Joyce Meyer was one of the most famous Christian teachers of her time because of her book Enjoying Everyday Life, which is available in over 100 languages and in many countries around the world. Meyer's practical approach to Christian living has changed the lives of many people, giving them hope, inspiration, and encouragement. The global success of Enjoying Everyday Life also helped Joyce Meyer Ministries grow, and it now operates in many countries and supports many charitable projects such as providing clean water, disaster relief, and food programs for the poor. Meyer's message of faith, hope, and healing has become a lighthouse for people in need, and her ministry has grown into a global organization that works to make a spiritual and practical difference in people's lives. The success of Enjoying Everyday Life and the growth of Joyce Meyer Ministries have made Meyer is one of the most influential Christian leaders in the world today. Her teachings have reached millions of people in need of hope and inspiration, crossing geographical and cultural boundaries. Meyer's influence goes beyond her TV show and ministry work. She is also a prolific author who has written more than 100 books on topics related to faith, personal growth, emotional healing, and spiritual development. Some of her most famous books, like Battlefield of the Mind and Beauty for Ashes, have become bestsellers and have been instrumental in helping people around the world overcome personal struggles through faith. Meyer's impact extends beyond her TV show, books, and ministry work. Meyer's ability to connect with people on a personal level and offer practical solutions to life's problems made her one of the most beloved Christian teachers of her time. Joyce Meyer started writing in the late 1990s and has since written over 100 books. Her writing often focuses on practical application, making difficult theological concepts easy for everyday readers to understand. Meyer's ability to communicate deep spiritual truths in simple, relatable language has helped her become one of the most famous authors in Christian literature. Her books have sold millions of copies and been translated into many languages, making her one of the most famous authors in the field. Battlefield of the Mind, which Meyer published in 1995, is one of her most important books. It talks about the inner struggles that many people face and stresses how important the mind is in the Christian faith. Meyer says that our thoughts shape our emotions and behaviors, and she gives us practical ways to break bad thought patterns. The main idea of the book is that the mind is like a battlefield, and our thoughts can either win or lose our spiritual lives. Through personal stories, biblical teachings, and exercises, Meyer encourages readers to take control of their minds. Meyer's book Battlefield of the Mind has helped a lot of people deal with anxiety, fear, and self-doubt. It's both a self-help book and a spiritual guide, giving people hope and encouragement in their daily lives. Another important book she's written is The Power of Simple Prayer, which came out in 2007. In it, Meyer talks about how prayer can change your life and how important it is for believers to pray every day. She stresses that prayer doesn't have to be hard or complicated. It can be simple and sincere. Meer believes that God wants a personal relationship with each person, and prayer is the way to nurture that relationship. One theme that runs through Meyer's writings is healing. Drawing from her own experiences of trauma and abuse, she is honest about the problems many people face and the ways that faith can help them. Meyer stresses that healing is not just physical or emotional, but also spiritual. She tells readers to give their pain to God and trust that He can restore them. Meyer's writings are full of messages of hope. She always reminds readers that no matter what their situation is, there is always a way to move forward by putting faith in. By believing in God and His promises, people can get through hard times and find meaning in their lives. Meyer's easy-to-read style and relatable stories inspire and uplift her readers, creating a sense of community among them. Meyer also stresses the importance of both inner and outer strength. She tells her readers to rely on God's strength in hard times, showing that real strength comes from faith and trust in Him. Meyer's teachings give people the tools to face life's challenges with resilience, encouraging them to build a strong spiritual foundation through the power of simple prayer. Gives readers useful advice on how to pray effectively and encourages them to be honest and open with God. She talks about different types of prayer, such as intercessory prayer, gratitude, and confession, and shows how each can help a person grow in their faith through personal stories and biblical references. For healing, guidance, and strength, prayer can lead to God's listening and ready response. As the leader of a well-known ministry around the world, Joyce Meyer's finances have been closely watched by many. Her TV show Enjoying Everyday Life is shown in more than 100 languages, and her books sell millions of copies. She also gives talks and holds conferences all over the world, which brings in a lot of money. Meyer has been open about her wealth, but some people are worried about how luxurious her lifestyle is thought to be, with a big house, fancy cars, and private jets. One of the main points of criticism is that Meyer's wealth is thought to go against the message of humility and selflessness that is often associated with Christian ministry. People who don't like her have pointed to her expensive lifestyle as proof that she may be benefiting personally from ministry donations, which has raised questions about the ethical use of funds in her organization. Some have said that high salaries and luxury amenities are at odds with the principles of service and charity that should guide religious leaders. The U.S. Senate Finance Committee started an investigation into the financial practices of large Christian organizations, including Meyer's ministry. The goal of the investigation was to find out if these ministries were abusing tax-free donations for personal gain. Meyer's ministry and others were asked to provide detailed information about their finances, including compensation, property ownership, and spending. Joyce Meyer has been open about the wealth she has accumulated, but she has always defended her lifestyle and the financial practices of her ministry. She has said that Meyer has said that she doesn't get paid by Joyce Meyer Ministries and that the money raised through donations goes to support the organization's outreach and humanitarian work. Meyer has also said that she believes wealth isn't inherently at odds with Christian values as long as it is used responsibly and for good reasons. She has pointed out that her financial success lets her give generously to causes that are important to her, like humanitarian relief efforts and programs that help people in need. Meyer has said many times that her wealth has. Meyer took steps to make her ministry more open and accountable in response to the Senate's investments and ongoing scrutiny. Joyce Meyer Ministries underwent major restructuring to make sure compliance with financial regulations and standards of accountability. The ministry also opened its books to independent auditors, which gave more information about its financial practices. These actions helped to quiet some of the criticism by showing the ministry's commitment to transparency and responsible stewardship of its funds. Meyer has also used public criticism to her advantage. In interviews and public statements, Meyer has said that her lifestyle may seem extravagant to some, but she is still grateful for the blessings she believes God has given her. She stresses that her focus is not on material wealth, but on using her resources to help others and spread the message of faith and hope. Meyer often talks about her humble beginnings and the hard times in her past to remind herself that her success is due to God's grace and that she is committed to giving back in meaningful ways. Her story of overcoming deep personal pain and turning to faith for healing has made her a well-known and influential Christian figure. Despite the tragic events in her life, Meyer has used her past to inspire others by using her personal testimony as proof of the redemptive power of faith.